Hi, this is Willie Nelson. You're watching RFD TV, agriculture's most important network, the friend of the family farmer. Stay tuned.
Happy 10th anniversary RFD TV. Many more.
On this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, we go live from our nation's capital. Join us as we sit down with lawmakers to discuss issues like the death tax, the environment, and trade. It's an episode you don't want to miss. Join us Tuesday night, May 25th at 8:30 Eastern as NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman goes live from Washington, D.C., right here on RFD TV.
Coming up next, Cattleman to Cattleman.
Next on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
On this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, we talk issues affecting your operation with members of Congress and industry leadership. We're live in Washington, D.C.
And now, a live edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Hello, and welcome to this special live edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Gregg Doud, Chief Economist with NCBA. Thanks for joining us. This is an exciting show for us ahead. We'll talk with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle about some of the issues that are most affecting you and your operation today. We'll also speak with some of NCBA's top D.C. staff about issues ranging from the environment to the political climate here in Washington, D.C. But first, let's learn a little bit more about the Washington, D.C. office of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association.
Day in, day out, the NCBA lobbyists are up here on Capitol Hill, right here at the House Agricultural Committee, knocking on doors, wearing out a lot of boot leather, working with members of Congress and their staff to educate them on the whole array of issues that this industry faces each and every day, and letting them know that whether you represent a rural district or whether you represent an urban district, the decisions you make and the votes that you take in Congress have a direct impact on those cattle producers out there who are producing America's food supply. And it truly is a full-time job.
Colin Woodall, who grew up in Texas cattle country, spends long days working the phones and the halls of Congress, advocating on issues that impact America's cattlemen. NCBA's Washington office is located right on Pennsylvania Avenue, and from here, Colin and his colleagues keep an eye on anything Congress and the federal government might do that impacts NCBA members.
You know, it's important for cattle producers to have a voice in Washington, D.C., and we know producers are well up before the sun, and they don't go to bed until long after the sun's gone down. They don't have the time to come in and talk to their members of Congress and understand exactly what's going on day in, day out here in Washington. And that's why it's important that NCBA serve as that voice. And we can be here every day keeping an eye on what's going on in Washington, keeping an eye on the legislators and the regulators, and making sure that cattle producers' voice are being heard.
Every year at our convention, producers pass policy that they want to move forward with on a federal level, and it's my job to make sure that their voices are being heard. And a variety of issues that I'm personally working right now include energy, as well as food safety and nutrition.
The NCBA Washington office is staffed by a group of professionals that includes a chief economist, a chief veterinarian, a chief environmental counsel, and a lobbying team. Together, they have the skill to tackle any issue from animal health to trade, environmental regulation to tax issues. They press for the interests of cattlemen and head off legislation or regulations that could adversely affect NCBA members.
There's really not a typical day for NCBA lobbyists. You may be in a hearing one day, you may be giving testimony one day, prepping a witness, going to a regulatory hearing, out in the field talking to producers. It really varies just depending on what Congress is doing.
I'm an advocate, I'm a mouthpiece for our producers to the federal government, to the regulatory agencies. And You know, I know that producers would rather be living in Texas or other states, you know, raising their cattle and raising a healthy, safe beef product, you know, to sell. And right now, my involvement, I still want to be involved in the beef industry, but in a little bit of a different way.
You know, the most important tool as a lobbyist is to have the support on the grassroots level. And we're able to have that voice for our producers. But unless our producers are also calling in and supporting us with letters or emails, then our efforts are really diminished. Because at the end of the day, members of Congress want to hear from their people back home. And that's why it's extremely important as an association, as a lobbyist, and as an industry that we have that grassroots support of our activities.
In Washington, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association today and help our staff in D.C. represent the best interests of America's cattlemen on Capitol Hill. Call us at 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit beefusa.org. Join before May 30th and get a free 500 milliliter bottle of Cydectin from our friends at Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica. If you join both NCBA and your state association, you'll get 2 bottles. We look forward to hearing from you. NCBA works closely with lawmakers on Capitol Hill to fight for cattlemen in this ever-changing political climate. Joining me in the studio is Representative Frank Lucas of Oklahoma. Congressman, thanks for being with us. As ranking member of the House Ag Committee, you have a big role to play in that policy decisions that impact our members. What do you see as the biggest threats facing American agriculture right now?
Well, in the short run, I think, Greg, is making sure that the 2008 Farm Bill is fully implemented and all the monies that were committed for EQIP and the various other programs are actually appropriated and the administration spends those correctly. But when you get past that, I guess looking at the next Farm Bill, the 2012 Farm Bill is important, but also making sure that we can survive things like all the new rules and regulations at EPA. So there's a lot of things we face on Capitol Hill as cattlemen.
Speaking of the EPA, what is your position on EPA's recent greenhouse gas endangerment finding and the role the federal government plays in general when it comes to regulating greenhouse gases?
Well, Greg, I think it's horrendous that a federal agency would step into a place where Congress, the elected officials, would not go. Yes, I know the House last summer passed this so-called global warming bill, cap and tax, and the effects on production, agriculture, and consumers are going to be just tremendously destructive. But now that they can't get that bill seemingly through the Senate, now what the EPA is doing is using a Supreme Court case to try and, by rule, do what the elected officials in Congress won't do. And that's a threat to all of us because few people consume as much energy as we do in the production agriculture.
Congress has also proposed legislation to expand federal authority under the Clean Water Act. How would this impact farmers and ranchers?
Right now, Greg, we've got a system by which the EPA and the federal government have jurisdiction over what's called navigable waters. And anything that you can't run a steamboat up in 1850, basically, your state environmental and state water resource agencies manage. In Oklahoma, that's the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality and the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. They do a good job. But there are those at EPA and some people I serve within Congress that would like to have the federal government control all sources of water. That means right up to your barn door. That means right up to your doorstep on the farm, and you do not want the EPA with that much control over the barnyard, the farmyard, and the pasture.
Well, I think we've got that message. What other message would you like to give to cattle producers?
Well, I want to remind my producers that we have a challenging time ahead of us. Whether it's this effort to pass some version of global warming, cap and tax, or the battle that's coming over making sure that the death tax does not come charging back at us, or the capital gains rate, or making sure that the EPA doesn't adopt this no spray drift rule, or the atrazine bans, or a variety of things going on. If you are involved in production agriculture or food processing, if you live in rural America, you're under stress right now. You need to be involved. You need to be focused. You need to make sure your members of Congress know we still matter in the country.
So that's what you see the role of NCBA as. We have a lot of issues here. Is that what we're supposed to do?
Exactly. Encouraging citizen advocates to step up to the plate, to call their United States senators, to call their members of Congress, to call their state legislators, to call the White House. Make sure they understand that whether it's when we write the next farm bill, that there's still farm in the farm bill, or when they implement rules and regulations, that they do it in a way that's not destructive to production, agriculture, and rural America.
What issues can we expect the House Ag Committee to take up in the coming months?
Well, I hope that we'll focus on making sure that the 08 Farm Bill is properly implemented. We've done a series of field hearings, Greg, so far in preparation for the 2012 Farm Bill, trying to make sure the folks here in the nation's capital who may not understand where their food comes from or the fiber and the clothes they wear come from, making sure they understand how important rural America is, how important production agriculture is, and why we need to have farm in the Farm Bill, as I say back home. I've had some differences of opinion with the Secretary of Ag. I don't think that we should turn rural America into a bedroom community. I think we still need to be in the business of raising livestock and raising crops and fiber. We still need to feed and clothe the world.
Congressman, thank you. Thank you for being with us here this evening.
Thank you, Greg.
It's been a pleasure. Did you know you can see NCBA's position on issues and rewatch interviews like this one online? To do so, visit cattlemantocattleman.org and join us as a member of NCBA. Call today at 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit beefusa.org and join before May 30th and receive a free bottle of Cydectin from Boehringer Ingelheim Vedmedica. We're just getting started here tonight, and we'll visit with Chairman Scott of Georgia and hear from NCBA's chief lobbyist Colin Woodall. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Your older utility tractor's never been worth more. Come into your John Deere dealer and we'll custom make a deal just for you. Cash discounts, 0% financing. Either way, we'll give you a great deal and put you in a new John Deere 20 to 140 horsepower utility tractor. Stop by your John Deere dealer today and see why John Deere quality has never been easier to own. Offer ends July 31st. Offer subject to approved credit on John Deere credit installment plan. See dealer for details.
Profit, confidence, value. That's what you get with Tri-Merit, a USDA process-verified program brought to your operation by Global Animal Management Incorporated. Tri-Merit's data management system certifies traditional health processes, as well as verifies age and source of individual and groups of animals. To learn more about how Tri-Merit can play a positive role in your operation, visit mygamonline.com. NCBA and Boehringer Ingelheim Vedmedica are teaming up to bring you more membership value. Join before May 30th and receive a free 500 milliliter bottle of Cydectin Pour-On. Join both NCBA and your state association and receive a second bottle of Cydectin absolutely free. For details, call 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit beefusa.org.
Discover a great roundup for beef producers. Now, Boehringer Ingelheim Vedmedica Incorporated has rounded up the top brands of animal health products. You bet your boots you won't find more ways to protect your cattle. So trust the leader to protect your cattle. Trust Boehringer Ingelheim. Talk to your Boehringer Ingelheim animal health representative and discover how we can help your operation.
Each week, Time Well Spent brings you the traditions, family values, and lifestyles that make Alabama great. And Grace and I have found two more excellent stories.
This week we'll visit a Christmas tree farm in Thorsby, and we'll visit the Mariana Green Henry Arena in Talladega, where special needs children are getting their physical therapy in unconventional ways.
We'll meet you here at the Co-op every Friday night at 10 Eastern, 9 Central to share Alabama.
But until then, we hope your time is time well spent.
Inspired by a time-honored American icon, crafted with centuries of wit and wisdom, simple solutions, laughter, and expertise. In the countryside, in the cities, bringing it all together. This is Farmer's Almanac TV.
Hi, I'm Artis Ford, host of Farm Week. On our next show, could pond scum be the next source of biofuel? Algae contains a lot of oil, but the trick is how to grow it in a cost-effective manner. We'll visit a Midwest plant where it's hoped that the byproducts of ethanol production will grow algae. In Southern gardening, you know container gardens can be decorative, but they can also be tasty if you plant vegetables and herbs. Tune in to Farm Week on RFD TV, Friday night at 6 and Saturday morning at 4 Eastern Time.
When driving a side-by-side, there are certain things you expect. You expect to have great stopping power. You expect to have stability. And you expect occupant security. The Honda Big Red, engineered with the safety features you expect. After all, it's a Honda. Experience Big Red during Big Red Demo Days. Call 888-344-6715 to find a location near you.
Welcome back. We're excited to be bringing you NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman live from Washington, D.C. We're hearing directly from Congressmen and NCBA's D.C. staff about the issues that matter most to you. And our next guest is closely connected to the policy issues being discussed here on Capitol Hill. Representative Dave Scott is from Georgia and chairman of the Livestock Subcommittee. Welcome, Chairman Scott.
Good to be with you, Greg. Thanks for having me.
In your role on the Livestock Subcommittee, one of the issues you've been very highly involved with is food safety. Yes. This is obviously a very important issue to our members. Can you tell us about your priorities for food safety legislation?
Well, first of all, the food safety issue is very paramount. We've had a few food scares, and so that's when the majority of the population really gets tuned into the food chain, is when they get scared and they get engaged. It's very important for us to respond appropriately. And we have two bills moving. The first bill we moved last summer, and the House bill, which I was a co-sponsor of, was H.R. 2749. We also have now a Senate bill that is moving, has not passed yet, but we expect for it to pass within the next month. And that is Senate Bill 510 by Senator Durbin of Illinois. Both of these bills are very similar. We look at food safety, and we're trying to deal with it in a very pragmatic way, in a way in which we have the sensitivities of all of our great food suppliers in mind, because in the final analysis, it has to work for them as well as making sure that our food supply is safe. Paramount of that is the Food and Drug Administration, which is our executioner of food safety. And what we're trying to do is to address the weaknesses within the Food and Drug Administration. The Food and Drug Administration has been more reactive than proactive. We need to fix that and make them proactive, make them more preventive. And in order to do that, we have to address some basic concerns that they have. There are a lot of good people over there at the Food and Drug Administration, but we've not given them the amount of money that they need. We've not given them the money and the resources so they can get the staffing that is needed to do the frequent inspections that are needed.
Are we going to get this bill passed this year?
Yeah, we're going to get it passed this year. We have to get it passed this year. There's another reason, too. There are a lot of people out there that want to kill us. And a lot of our areas of our food safety becomes a national security issue here. So we need to be very proactive. We're pushing that, where hopefully we can get some items in that are needed. In addition to that, we have what we call the hazard analysis at critical control points. That is the basis for this bill, so that we get a standardized performance in there for the food chain all the way through. The other area is a little ticklish, and that is, how do we address the issue of recall? Right now, within the cattlemen's area and the Beef Association, they're doing an excellent job in terms of voluntarily recalling a damaged product. However, there may come a time when the affected firm that controls this product may not voluntarily do that. But we need to have a safety valve in here which gives the Federal Food and Drug Administration that authority to move in and to do that. That is an area in which we are working on as well. But we feel that this bill will move pretty quickly, but it is important, allow me to say, that we have the input of the Cattlemen's Association and Beef Association, because you all are the ones that have to make it work. And as subcommittee chairman of the committee under whose jurisdiction this is, I'm very sensitive to making sure we have that input before us with all of our sectors of our particularly our animal agriculture industry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we really appreciate your leadership in this area.
Thank you.
In addition to food safety, what other issues are a priority for you right now?
Well, right now, I think we have to look at, in addition to food safety, we have to look at animal welfare. That's an issue. That's an issue you all are facing.
Absolutely.
And as I said, as the public gets more engaged, you have people who don't quite understand that animal welfare is animal welfare. It has to be done within the context of the business that we're in. And there's nobody that wants to take better care of their animals than those individuals who are out there who are making a living from this. The producers of our beef, the producers of our poultry, want to make sure that those animals are taken care of, that they're safe, and that they're healthy. And so we have to make sure we get the correct information out. For example, we have a few bills in that I think that you in your industry ought to be mindful of. Ms. Watson has a bill in California that says the prevention of cruelty to farm animals. Well, I think you need to look at that just from the very nature of the wordage there, cruelty to farm animals. That's how you make your living, so you have to look at that. Another bill by my good friend, Mr. Conyers of Michigan, is one of prevention of cruelty to horses. So the word cruelty there automatically assumes that you're being cruel, when in fact, from my understanding of the industry, you go a long way in making sure your food is safe, that your animals are taken care of. I think you spend anywhere from $300 to $400 million a year to do that. You want to keep that up. But, you know, the wisest man was Solomon. And when Solomon asked the Lord for something, he said, give me wisdom. But the Lord also came back and said, with all your getting of wisdom, get understanding. So you can get all the knowledge you want, but if they don't understand, and so that is a charge that your organization is getting the right information out. The other area would be, I think, antibiotics. That's a very serious issue. You need to make sure your veterinarians are out front on this. They have the quality, they have the respect. My feeling is that antibiotics used judiciously, properly, is good. It should be used to keep animals safe and healthy. However, my good friend Ms. Slaughter has a bill, and please, she's my great friend and my good friend. I think the world of her, but I think that the definition in that bill that defines non-therapeutic use for antibiotics will cause some heartburn for your industry, because it says basically, it defines it as for only can be treated if there is a clinical sign of the disease. In other words, you take away from your veterinarian the preventive use of antibiotics to keep them healthy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, obviously you know these issues very well. How does the average producer out there get more involved in these issues here in Washington?
Contact your congressman. Talk with him. He is your advocate. He is your voice. And I think you should do something else, because your issues are very pressing, and they're basically based upon getting the correct information out, getting the understanding out. And I would go so far, we have unlimited 1 minutes, and sometimes we have 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with when you go to speak to your congressman that you ask him, would you use 1 of your minutes on the floor before C-SPAN to communicate with the public on this particular issue? I've done that for our poultry people. We had a problem with our trade with Russia and with China because of the use of chlorine. Well, I got some folks down at Georgia Tech who put together a wonderful program that solved that problem. I went on the floor and I talked about that. We got to realize that your audience is so much larger. And with these food scares coming, with terrorism threats going left and right, this issue of how we keep our food safe, how we prepare it, how we process it in every step of the way is going to take on a much bigger dimension. So I would say, use your, not just go and talk to him about this, but put him to work for you by using that C-SPAN to help you communicate your message out to the broader audience about what you're doing.
Well, and exporting that poultry to Russia helps beef prices as well.
Oh, it does. It does. It really does.
Well, what issues can we expect to be coming out of your subcommittee here in the coming months?
Well, I think that going forward will be basically the antibiotic issue and also the dairy issue. Our dairymen are having a serious problem. They're overproducing. They have regional differences. It is one of the most complex, complicated issues we have. We've held hearing after hearing after hearing. But I am determined to help make sure our dairy farmers are profitable. That's what we are trying to do. At the same time, we're dealing with the antibiotic issue that we will have, because I quite honestly feel that issue should be within our purview. So we have a little jurisdiction fight here. One of the challenges we have is that we have the agricultural issues truncated in a variety of different areas. Energy and Commerce has a piece of this. Appropriations Ag has a piece of this. And then the Agriculture Committee. So we're working to make sure we can get most of that back under us. And there's no committee that is active and on the front lines of some of these timely issues than our subcommittee of livestock, of poultry, and of food safety. So we're dealing with the antibiotics. We'll be dealing with that. There may come a little bit on the ID, and I understand the sensitivities of that. We want to get some clarity in issues, and that's why I say it's important for the cattlemen to be there. And you've got some wonderful people working with. We enjoy working with on our committee and getting the information there. We've had some experience with our Canadian folks who, as you know, probably know, are mandatory ID. There's some thought of what we do here. So they're just a plethora of really serious issues we have to deal with, but those are the ones we'll be moving forward with.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for all your efforts on behalf of cattlemen, and thank you for being here with us this evening. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Good being with you.
Thank you very much. You can learn more about NCBA and the issues we're working on every day in Washington by visiting cattlemantocattleman.org. And we would love to have you as a member of our organization, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. We're the oldest and largest organization representing America's cattlemen. Join us today by calling 1-866-USA-BEEF or by visiting beefusa.org. Join by May 30th and get a free bottle of Cydectin from our friends at Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica. Join NCBA in your state association and receive 2 bottles. The environment. It's a key topic in Washington, D.C. these days and at NCBA. Joining us in the studio is Tamara Thies, Chief Environmental Counsel for NCBA. Tamara, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
In December, the EPA issued an endangerment finding for greenhouse gases. What exactly does that finding mean? And more specifically, what impact would it have on agriculture?
Well, the endangerment finding was a significant development by the EPA, and what they found essentially is that carbon dioxide endangers human health and the environment, if you can imagine. And our issue with their endangerment finding is, did they conduct the essential, rigorous scientific analysis to find that actually it did harm human health or the environment? And we believe that they did not. And in fact, what they did do instead was subdelegate their authority to a foreign agency. And they did. The foreign agency is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change out of Europe. It has been disclosed since that time that the science there was found to be manipulated by scientists within the European universities that look at this data, and in fact that many of the anybody who disagreed with their findings were chastised, and many of the studies were not able to be peer-reviewed and appear in peer-reviewed journals. And so we think that there's a huge issue with the science here, and we are working hard to make it right.
This is a really tough issue. What is NCBA doing to protect its members?
Well, what we've done is we have appealed, filed a petition of appeal to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C., and to ask the court to take a look and see if the EPA really did do what our citizens here require under the Administrative Procedures Act, for one thing. They do require, our laws require, that our EPA has a completely open process for scientific assessment. Everything has to be peer-reviewed. Everything has to be in the public. And as we know, the European community did not do that. We have no laws that say that they can delegate their authority to Europe. And so we have appealed it, and we feel pretty good about our chances of winning.
So in addition to these legal challenges, EPA is facing pushback from members of Congress on both sides of the aisle as well. One of the big arguments they're making is that the issue of greenhouse gas regulation should be decided through professional debate rather than unilaterally being mandated by EPA. Are we seeing any movement up on Capitol Hill on these legislative priorities?
Fortunately, yes. And what Congress has done, they've talked about cap and trade and whether they should impose any kind of regulation on greenhouse gas emissions. And so far, they've decided not to. Unfortunately, the EPA has gone ahead, charged forward without any kind of congressional authority, and decided to regulate it anyway. And what we're working hard to do now is to overturn what EPA has done. Senator Murkowski from Alaska has introduced a resolution of disapproval. It's a great tool to stop an overreaching executive branch of government. Congress can do it when this kind of power grab that's taken place on this issue, and we are working hard to get enough. We need 51 votes to overturn what EPA has done. Right now we have 41 co-sponsors for Senator Murkowski's amendment. We need more votes. We don't necessarily need co-sponsors, but we need the votes. And so we're working hard to make that happen, and we hope that our membership will, and every citizen will encourage their congressman to vote in favor of it.
Okay, that's on the Hill side. What are the next steps in the EPA regulatory process?
Well, EPA has issued every regulation that we've been expecting now to fully regulate greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide of all things. And they are charging forward to implement it. And our best tool right now is to pass the Murkowski Amendment to stop them. And so we really urge everyone out there to contact their senators, their congressmen, and a similar resolution is going through the House to get it done to defeat the EPA's power grab.
Well, Tamara, thank you so much. These are really tough issues, and we appreciate what you do for us. Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman live from Washington, D.C., we'll hear from NCBA's chief lobbyist, Colin Woodall, plus current president and Illinois beef producer Steve Fogelsong. We'll be right back.
Draxxin, clearly cattlemen's #1 choice to fight BRD. Here's why.
Nothing is more depressing in a stalker business as the doctor and doctor. And you still have your chronics, you still have your death loss. And with Draxxin, we just found out that, especially with microplasts, you just had to be there to see the results.
And the evidence backs up what most cattlemen already know. Draxxin cuts chronics and mortalities by 70%. So talk to your veterinarian and check the online calculator at Draxxin.com. You'll see, nothing gives you more for your money when you're fighting BRD.
Just a great antibiotic. Very, very effective. Don't let the price tag scare you. It's a no-brainer. You just use it.
Do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older. Do not use in calves to be processed for veal. Draxxin has a pre-slaughter withdrawal time of 18 days. Please visit Draxxin.com or call 1-888-DRAXXIN for more information.
Look, I know you think this is easy, but when I get done here, I gotta tag those calves, check on the foal, fix the fence, and that's all before Jack's game. We're not gonna miss this one. It's the last game of the season. Easy. This is living.
We understand animals make life better. That's why we put so much care into Purina Mills feeds.
From fresh tomatoes to potatoes and chicken to beef. We're as picky about our quality ingredients as you are. Because that's what we're made of.
Horse lovers, tune in Thursday evening, May 27th, 10 p.m. Eastern, as RFD TV proudly presents Equine Live. This 1-hour live program will feature many of the equine experts you see on RFD TV. PBR Now, normally seen Thursday evenings, will return for a new season in mid-July. Until then, enjoy Equine Live. Join guest host Rick Lamb Thursday, May 27th. Call in with your questions. It's Equine Live, Thursday, May 27th on RFD TV.
The May-June issue of RFD-TV The Magazine features Our Five Sons Alaska and their second season on RFD-TV with all new episodes and the premiere of a hot new cooking show called Southern Fresh, set to join the RFD-TV lineup. There are special features on rural landscaping with tips on building ponds and paths, gardening with kids, and more. You'll find stories about crop artist Stan Hurd, the National Cattle Dog Finals, an interview with Hee Haw's Nurse Goodbody, Ganilla Hutton, Dolly Parton's visit to the Marty Stewart Show, David Church from Midwest Country and Relay appearing at RFD-TV The Theater, Road to the Horse champion Craig Cameron, squeaky saddle tips, and upcoming rural events, along with all the regular features including weekly highlights for every show, the 24-hour program grid, country recipes, jokes, a crossword puzzle, and much more. Thanks for supporting rural programming across America. Subscribe or renew your subscription to RFD-TV The Magazine today. Subscribe to RFD-TV The Magazine and get a free RFD-TV denim cap along with your 6 exciting issues throughout the year. A 1-year subscription is just $30. There are 3 convenient ways to order. To order by credit card, call 888-657-3388. To order online, go to RFDTV.com and click Magazine. Or send a $30 check or money order to RFD-TV The Magazine, P.O. Box 78546, Nashville, Tennessee, 37207. Keep up with rural America. Place your order today.
Welcome back to this live edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Gregg Doud, live in Washington, D.C. We're glad you're with us. Each and every day, NCBA's Washington, D.C. office works hard to represent interests of cattlemen on Capitol Hill. And leading that effort is Colin Woodall, Vice President of Government Affairs. Welcome, Colin.
Thank you, Greg.
One of the big issues these days is climate change. Tell me about the Murkowski resolution.
Well, I tell you, when our founding fathers put together our form of government, they did it with checks and balances. That way, no one portion of the government could get too much power. And that's what the Murkowski Amendment or Resolution of Disapproval actually does. It brings back some of that power to our legislative side. Right now, what this is going to do is it's going to allow Congress to vote on whether or not they want to stop and slow down EPA's efforts on greenhouse gases. We've got 41 co-sponsors right now. We only need 51 to get it passed. So we are very, very close. And there is a lot of the farm state Democrats that still have not committed to help us out. So we're really focusing on them right now because we have a vote on June the 10th to make this happen. If we get this done in the Senate, it gives us a good step to make it happen over in the House side. And it sends a huge signal to the Obama White House and also to the EPA that we want to make sure that this debate is based on fact and not just on rhetoric. And unfortunately, a lot of the rhetoric and the emotion has won the day so far.
That's a great message. We have one more thing related to this cap and trade legislation. What's the status on that one?
You bet. Well, you know, the overall issue of climate change, there was a House bill that passed last summer. It only passed by 1 vote. So it shows just how controversial it was. Then, of course, we had ClimateGate right before Christmas, where it just added even more doubt to the overall issue of climate change. Well, that caused the Senate to go back and try to find a new approach. We had Senators Kerry and Lieberman came together and tried to work on a compromise. And they brought in Senator Lindsey Graham, who's a Republican from South Carolina, to try to be a little bit of a balance to give this bill something that could have a leg to stand on. Well, because of some other issues in regards to immigration, Senator Graham has pulled out. So right now, we don't think that cap and trade is going to get a vote, and we're very happy about that because we don't support this whole issue. We did not support the House bill. We wouldn't support a Senate bill coming up because, once again, it goes back to the greenhouse gas conversation we just had. There has not been enough conversation based on fact, and we want people to slow down and look at the underlying issue here. Once we have that, then we can discuss what next steps are, but until that's put in place, there should be no congressional action on climate change or greenhouse gases as a whole.
So just because we've passed this bill in the House, we've still got to go through the Senate process, and it's kind of gummed up in the Senate, so it's not going anywhere this year?
That's exactly right, because the Senate is really bogged down on a whole lot of other issues. Financial and regulatory reform is one of them. Of course, now they're going to have to worry about confirming a new Supreme Court justice, which is take a lot of time. And we have to remember that this is a midterm election year, so there is a lot of push to get them home as much as possible so they can run for re-election. So that means there's going to be some short weeks. So there's just not enough time for them to actually sit down in Washington, D.C. and really get this job done. And like I say, in this instance, it is to our advantage. And for a lot of other issues that are out there, it's to our advantage that they spend more time at home and not in Washington, D.C.
Well, and we still don't have a budget either, do we?
Oh, exactly right. We don't have a budget. We have an appropriations process that is pretty much stopped. Government, as we know it, is really at a standstill. There's a few issues out there that might pop up. The regulatory reform might have an opportunity to be passed. We really hope that the food safety bill that Chairman Scott talked about gets passed, because that's a good bill for us. But outside of that, there's really not a whole lot of good coming out of Washington, D.C. or out of the U.S. Congress. And like I say, that's probably good for boots-on-the-ground cattle producers.
So we think the food safety bill is going to get passed yet before Congress adjourns?
Well, we do, because it's a very bipartisan bill. It's something that NCBA has worked on the Senate version for about 5 years now in different iterations to get it to a workable solution, something that we can actually support and does good, actually helps food safety rather than just adding more layers of bureaucracy. Unfortunately, the House bill, we felt, added so many more layers of bureaucracy that it wouldn't actually translate into true food safety reforms. So this bill on the Senate side is a fantastic bill. We are working to help get both Democrats and Republicans to support it, to get industry to support it. That way we have something that will really help protect our consumers and make our industry stronger.
All right, let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about these Department of Justice and USDA ag competition workshops.
Well, you know,
what's the story with those?
Yeah, that is a great question, Greg, because this is a situation that goes back many, many years, and it's the overall issue of what we used to call competition. But that's really a bit of a misnomer, because this is about government intrusion in the cattle marketplace, and something that we just don't support. We don't want the government coming in and telling you how you can or cannot market cattle. The issue of trying to discuss transparency in the marketplace, however, is a good one. We support going out there and having these conversations with producers to find out what they're experiencing day in and day out when they're trying to market their cattle. And if we focus on that, I think we're going to have a lot of success. Because we have to remember that we have two sets of laws that have really helped us throughout the years. We have all of the antitrust laws, the Department of Justice, and we have the Packers and Stockyards Act. For years, they have done a great job of protecting cattle producers from anti-competitive actions. We just want them enforced. If we fully enforce them like they should be, we don't have to have this discussion on things like ban on packer ownership of cattle. So that's why we're going into these competition workshops with a bit of an open mind, because yes, we do want to have the discussion on transparency, and if there are problems in transparency, we are going to support getting those taken care of. But if these become a conversation on marketing alliances, alternative marketing arrangements, forward contracting, things that impact the producer's ability to be a price maker versus a price taker, we're not going to support it. And we're going to do everything we can to try to kill any proposal that comes out there that's going to impact the producer's ability to market cattle, because that is just a basic right of the way our economy is built. It's a willing buyer and a willing seller and a handshake to get a job done.
Well, and I think it's also important in this dialogue, in this process, that folks understand that the way dairy products are marketed is very different than the way pork is marketed than poultry and beef. All of these, you can't lump livestock marketing issues together. They're all very unique. The way pork is marketed in this country and hogs is very, very different than cattle. And we appreciate your efforts to help get that message going on Capitol Hill.
You know, it's all about willing buyer, willing seller, and the ability to market cattle how and when you want to.
Chairman Scott mentioned this issue of antibiotics. What is NCBA doing? This is another issue where education is a big part of the discussion here on Capitol Hill. What is NCBA doing up on Capitol Hill on this issue?
Well, Greg, this is a great success story for NCBA, because when you look at where we were as an industry a year ago, we had lost this battle in the public relations mind, because people were listening to our opposition, groups like Pew, their charitable trust, and what they have done against us in this regards. And they were starting to think that we were the bad guy. Well, we decided we had to get out there and correct the misinformation. So we put together a set of programs that we call Beef 101. It's a great opportunity for us to bring experts from the countryside to come to Washington, D.C., we have a sit-down meeting with members of Congress and with their staff, and we talk about what these products are, how these are tools to make us more efficient, how they're tools to keep our animals healthy. As we all know, healthy animals means healthy food. We've had 5 of them over the course of the year. The last one was in February, where we brought in not only cattle experts, but experts from the pork industry, the chicken segment, and also dairy. It was standing room only. Matter of fact, Chairman Scott was there. He introduced us, he hosted it, and he stayed throughout this entire program because of his commitment to try to make sure we keep this tool as something that is usable for cattle producers. So we're winning the PR battle, and we have kept Ms. Slaughter's bill off of food safety and off any amendments. So far we're winning.
We've got just a few seconds here. Quickly, what's the next step? Farm bill coming up? What do we have on that?
Yeah, it's hard to believe that there's a farm bill coming up, and we're still trying to implement the 2008 bill, but we are having hearings in the countryside to see what's on producers' minds. One thing that we know right now is we don't want a livestock title. There was one in the 2008 bill that had some stuff that we didn't care for, so we're going to try to kill it. What we want is focus on research, focus on conservation. Other than that, keep us out.
Colin, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Thanks for all you do in Washington. To support the efforts of Colin and his team in Washington, D.C., join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Call us today at 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit usbeef.org. Join by May 30th and receive a free 500-milliliter bottle of Cydectin from Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica. Join both NCBA and your state association and get 2 bottles of Cydectin free. Ahead, we'll hear from NCBA President Steve Fogelsong. Stay with us.
Before you head out here, get ready at Cabela's, your source for the hottest new gear at tough-to-beat prices. Save big on everything you need when you shop by catalog, stores, and online at Cabela's.com. Our legendary selection is field-tested and field-proven. You can trust our gear. Cabela's, world's foremost outfitter.
Join the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. NCBA is the premier cattle industry organization representing your best interests in Washington, D.C. and across the country.
I want to have my voice heard, and this is the strongest way I can speak it. It's through NCBA, and my little voice gets a lot of magnitude with this group.
Well, I've been an NCBA member for a long time. My family thoroughly believes in giving back to the industry that they make a living from, and I've carried that on from generation to generation, and this is the organization of choice for the beef industry.
Every day, NCBA works to represent you on issues including trade, taxes, food safety and nutrition, animal welfare, and the environment.
The main reason I'm an NCBA member is to become engaged, more knowledgeable about everything that's going on in the beef industry.
It's easy to join NCBA. Just visit beefusa.org or call us at 1-866-USA-BEEF. NCBA and Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica are teaming up to bring you more membership value. Join before May 30th and receive a free 500-milliliter bottle of Cydectin Pour-On. Join both NCBA and your state association and receive a second bottle of Cydectin absolutely free. For details, call 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit beefusa.org.
Built with quality and backed with the best coverage in America, including a 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. That's 40,000 more miles than Ford. Chevy Silverado Half-Ton, a Consumer's Digest Best Buy, and the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
During spring event, get 0% APR for 72 months on 2010 Silverado Half-Ton models with an average finance savings of around $6,000.
If you're talking about tightening existing fence, it's probably the best tool I've ever seen. You need this tool every spring in this country.
You can do it in a hurry and be done with it.
You can instantly see the need for that. Ingenious, I'd think.
Order the original Texas Fence Fixer today for just $89.95 and get free shipping and handling. That's a $15 savings. Call 866-236-5472 or visit TexasFenceFixer.com and order now.
Water, the source of life. Science, improving life. Imagine scientifically engineered water that replicates an animal's immune system to naturally clean, treat, and heal all types of wounds and infections. With Vetricin, that dream is now a reality. Vetricin combines the simplicity of water with the miracle of science to provide your animal with the most innovative wound and infection-fighting treatment available. Vetricin is revolutionizing how infections caused by bacteria and fungus are treated. Safe as water, it is gentle enough to use around the eyes, nose, and mouth. Yet it has been clinically proven to kill serious topical infections like staph and MRSA without the use of antibiotics or steroids. Simply spray on Vetricin to immediately begin the healing process. Clean, treat, heal with Vetricin. Perfect for wounds, infections, and post-surgical sites.
Order now, only $28 for an 8-ounce bottle. Be sure to always have a bottle on hand for unexpected wounds. Money back guarantee if you are not completely satisfied. Call now.
Stand by, Baxter. And action.
The Ventura County Star in California had a column for the Lovelorn a la Dear Abby. They called themselves the Love Wranglers. There were 3 of them. Howdy. Dear Saddle Trio, my wife wants a divorce but still insists on us going to a marriage counselor so she can say she tried. What should I do? Signed, In the Crosshairs. Dear Crosshairs.
Change states.
Works for me. Dear Triple Tie-Down Triad, I'm a 22-year-old ex-model, now bank vice president, with a new dually and roping arena and 4 credit cards. How can I get my surfing boyfriend to pop the question? Signed, Palomino Yearning. Dear Yearning, kiss your surfing smoothie goodbye and send a copy of your resume.
Complete with a picture of the dually.
That's right, to the Tri-Tip Cowboys at rightonbaby.com. Dear Tumbleweed Triage, our first wedding anniversary is coming up soon, and I'd like to get a gift for my wonderful cowboy hubby, signed, Still Swooning. Dear Swooning.
Beer. It's always a good choice.
Yeah, I like that. Dear Tripe-Eating Triplets, I'd like to marry my cowboy Robert, and have proposed to him in a poem which I can't quite finish. Can you help me? It begins, I'll marry you, I'm ready, Bob, if you'll just get a steady, signed, Anxious in Oxnard. Sorry, nothing comes to mind. Here's a nice one. Dear Triangular Trail Riders, my cowboy's been out on the wagon, and I haven't seen him for 6 weeks. Any idea what I might wear for our first night back together? Signed, Stars in Her Eyes. Yes, ma'am, I do. Dear Stars, barbecue sauce. Dear Triplicating Cowpunchers, what's the best way to get a guy to commit? Signed, Desperately Seeking. Dear Desperately, commit to what? This is Baxter Black from out there in California, too.
Welcome back. We're live from Washington, D.C., talking about the issues that are impacting cattlemen these days in the country and on Capitol Hill. Joining me in the studio is NCBA President and beef producer from Illinois, Steve Fogelsong. Welcome, Steve.
Hey, Greg. Good to see you.
How are you? Tell us about who you are and where you're from.
Well, Greg, as you know, I'm from Western Illinois, and my family and I run a cow-calf operation and a feedlot there.
Well, so you visit D.C. on a basis just to check up on us, or why are you here this week?
Well, sometimes it seems like that's what it is, but I actually had several items that I wanted to take care of this week. Earlier, I met with the 25 by 25 Energy Summit. And that's a group that's put together to take a look at the energy policy in this country. And they asked me to come and talk about how livestock is impacted by that energy policy, and then to look at what we potentially could do to help provide a clean and reliable and renewable resource to use the energy in this country. And then a little later on, a group of producers and I, we spent some time this afternoon over at the office of the USDA, where we talked about a governance structure that we've been working through. And that governance structure is to hopefully give the lots of cattlemen the opportunity to integrate and be a part of what we're doing to help the beef industry. And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to have the opportunity to go and meet with several ag groups here in town, and we're going to go through that governance structure there as well and present to them what our plans are and get some input from them.
Well, Steve, take a minute and just explain to folks why you're an NCBA member and why they should be an NCBA member.
Well, you know, the very first thing is that somebody asked me, and that was years ago. And, you know, and I appreciate the fact that was one of the greatest gifts that somebody ever gave me. But then after I got involved for a little while, it became apparent to me as I studied what was going on that by myself, I really didn't have any opportunity to affect policy and the problems that you've heard discussed here this evening. Only by being a member and being a part of something where cattle producers hook together and join forces can we have an opportunity to affect the policies that are taking place around here.
So does it really make a difference? When you come to Washington, D.C. and talk to folks, does it really have an impact?
Oh, I think so, and more so today than probably ever before. You know, when I was first involved, it seemed like everybody had an ag aide that went to school in some land-grant college. That's not necessarily the case today, and it seems like we spend a lot more time just explaining what it is we do for a living. And those of you that work in D.C., you understand that better than I do, and it's a full-time job.
Absolutely. Steve, what's your specific message to cattlemen this evening?
Well, you know, there's a lot of those issues that we deal with, and I think for producers out there in the country, we really need to join forces. We need to get serious about what we're trying to accomplish here, and I need you as producers to understand that not only do I expect you to be a member of NCBA for a number of reasons. We need the dues money is one thing, but that's not the end game. You heard the congressman earlier this evening talk about how he wants to hear from producers, and unless we as producers are willing to go out and tell our story, who should we expect? So A, I want the dues dollars that you've got, but more importantly, I need you to be an active member and participate at the county, state, and national level. Join with me and become a member of NCBA. Together, we can be a force to be reckoned with.
So there's a special offer right now going on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you'll have to tell me about that.
No, I'll tell you about that at the end this evening. You know, we're all on live TV here. We've got a few minutes. Steve, now that you put the shoe on the other foot, you can be the host here for a second.
As a matter of fact, I can. Greg, you're one of our staff people there in town here. And why don't you tell us, you're kind of the expert on trade. Why don't you give us the 2-minute version of what's going on in the trade thing? You haven't had an opportunity to ask questions. Let me do that for a minute.
Well, Steve, I'll tell you that we've had a lot of frustration on the trade front, and we have a product that sells ourselves before we can ever get access to the market. We've still got some work to do in Japan. The Secretary Vilsack was over in Japan having some conversations about that issue. I think that we have a big election coming in July over there in Japan, but after that we should be able to get down to business, government, to get something going on there. There's some discussions going on with China right now. NCBA and others have been involved in discussions with Mexico. But overall, if you look at the whole picture, our beef exports are up, I think, 23% so far this year. The value of the dollar has really helped us. World economies are coming around, and greater China. If you look at China, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, that's a really hot part of the world right now. Our economies are doing extremely well around the world, and it's a good time to be in the beef business. Steve, thanks a million for being with us here this evening and for all your leadership. We really, really appreciate it.
It's been my pleasure.
Join cattlemen like Steve Fogelsong as a member of NCBA. Call us today at 1-866-USA-BEEF or visit beefusa.org. Here's that special offer. Join by May 30th and get a free 500-milliliter bottle of Cydectin from Boehringer Ingelheim Vetmedica, and join your state association and receive 2 free bottles of Cydectin. Joining NCBA is an important investment in the future of your operation. Thank you for joining us this evening for this very special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. You can see this episode and others by visiting our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.
Congratulations, RFD TV, for 10 great years serving rural America and celebrating our country's agricultural industry. NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman is looking forward to celebrating another 10 great years.
Thanks for watching RFD TV, rural America's most important network.